this all kind of happened on your platform. I want to send a message to you. And I basically wanted to say that I think it's cowardice.
Man. So in today's video, we got to highlight Stephen A. Smith getting checked live to his face by Jaylen Brown, man. Jaylen Brown sat down with Stephen A. Smith on his podcast, The Stephen A. Smith Show. And Jaylen Brown confronted Stephen A. for some things that Stephen A. Smith said about Jaylen Brown live on ESPN First Take. If you guys missed that, we did do a video on that. But let's check it out right here again, just in case you guys missed it. Here's the video.
Jaylen Brown, it's not so much that he's underrated. It's that he's just not liked because of his, quote, "I am better than you" attitude. He knows it. It's the same reason he is not as marketable as he should be. That's what an NBA source just sent me. I don't know that to be the case. I like Jaylen Brown. I know a lot of people that like Jaylen Brown.
So that's what Stephen A. Smith had to say about Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown responded back to Stephen A. Smith. Jaylen Brown responded back to Stephen A. Smith, and he also started trolling Stephen A. Smith with this State Your Sources shirt, as you guys can see right here. And before Jaylen Brown linked up to confront Stephen A. Smith, he had made Stephen A. Smith put the State Your Source shirt on right here, as you guys can see. This is a photo of Stephen A. Smith and Jaylen Brown. So let's get into Jaylen Brown checking Stephen A. Smith live to his face on his podcast, The Stephen A. Smith Show. Let's check out the clip right here.
Is it your emotions for me when you learned, A, you were not going to be one of the 12 selected on Team USA, and B, despite the fact that 3 of your teammates was on the team, 2 of them who spend 82 games a year deferring to you, and 1, obviously, Jason Tatum, who came here a year later, but is the 3-time first-team All-NBA over the last 3 years. What was that like for you?
The emotions?
Yeah.
It was a lot, honestly. And a lot of the stuff that we just talked about, I feel like delineates into the same conversation. But I'll say this. I look at our global game, and Europe is closing the gap. I believe that we should focus more on our development of our youth and grassroots. And I think sports, I think shoe companies should have less control over the industry. Right now, and I was one of those kids. You know, I was a top player, #1. Actually, you came to one of my high school games. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I was a top player in high school, and and it was so much to deal with, Nike, Adidas, like going to an Adidas school, going to a Nike school. And the kids should just be focusing on development. And I think in 2028, if I have to sign to Nike to increase my likelihood to play USA basketball, I'll pass.
Why?
1, I think that I think the essence, like you see it in our grassroots, kids, instead of enjoying the essence of basketball, are like forced to pick a side and protect that.
Sure.
So to start off, I wanted to ask you a question.
Sure.
And profession aside, as a #1 reporter with the biggest platform,
Yes, sir.
in the world, I hold you accountable.
Please
So, is there ever any dissension from what you report on as a man? I mean, what you report on as a reporter, and then what you stand for as an individual. Like when you go home, is there ever any dissension in the decisions that you make?
Well, for the most part, no, because I find myself to be humane and fair. But in the same breath, when we take this example, let me use this example that you're talking about, with what I said was text to me about you. And by the way, others had said it as well. I wasn't talking about how I feel. You and I have been cool for years. You've always been good to me. And immediately after the show, I got 3 separate phone calls. And they were like, yo, this guy is not liked by some of the powers that be because he's smart, because he's outspoken, because he's principled and he's defiant and he's not easily manipulated. These are things that are costing him. I didn't look at it as something that was smearing your character. I looked at it as individuals basically pointing out that you're not liked. And I completely understand why folks who are in positions of power and decision-making positions, you wouldn't like somebody because they usually don't like folks that are principled.
What I was asking was, is there a dissension but what you report on, and also how you carry yourself as an individual and as a man? Like, how do you differentiate the two? But to be honest, I'm gonna come clean.
Sure.
Like, I wanted to have this conversation, but honestly, I couldn't wait to address this unnamed source.
Right.
I know they probably will be watching this because people like that are always watching. And I wanted to let them know that I had a great summer. Like, just as simple as that. Like, I traveled the world. I went to Umrah. I won 2 MVPs. I, launched Black Wall Street in Oakland and made a music video. I had a blast.
Right.
So I wanted to let them know that I had a great summer. I really wanted to address them directly, but I feel like since this all kind of happened on your platform, I want to send a message to you, to them.
Right.
Because you only the person that knows who the source is. And I basically wanted to say to them that I think it's cowardice. I think historically, unnamed sources have attacked some of our greats. And we are not responsible for what they lack in design. Frankly, they can call all their buddies, they pals and friends from all over the world, all the unnamed sources, and they can shove it where they got it from.
Okay, so that's what Jaylen Brown had to say confronting Stephen A. Smith live to his face, man. And I like Jaylen Brown. He stand on principle. And as you can see, a principled man, he will come confront you about your sources. Even though Stephen A. Smith, of course, he's not going to name his sources and whoever is texting him and talking trash about Jaylen Brown. But I like the fact that Jaylen Brown did come confront Stephen A. Smith and said that, okay, well, now I got to talk to you through your sources. And I like the fact that Jaylen Brown made it clear that these unnamed sources are very cowardly. I like that he has said that because like Jaylen Brown said, he's going to talk to Stephen A. Smith like Stephen A. Smith is these quote unquote sources that he has. So Jaylen Brown is calling those guys cowards, but not coming out and putting a name on it. But these guys can continue to slander his name and then use Stephen A. Smith's platform, large platform, mind you. First Take has been #1 for 12 years. And then like Jaylen Brown was saying, also on his podcast that is continuing to grow right now. And yeah, man, so Stephen A. Smith repeating what these unnamed sources is saying, that does not help Jaylen Brown in the case, especially if he's up for like contract negotiations or, he got snubbed to be on Team USA because they started talking about that instead of talking about Jaylen Brown's basketball credentials. They just made it about all of these unnamed sources and what Stephen A. Smith said about him, because now Stephen A. Smith using his platforms to give these unnamed sources the light of the day to talk about athletes that can hurt these athletes in the long run. And that's what Jaylen Brown was trying to ask Stephen A. Smith, like as a man and as a journalist, do you know when to just have some type of integrity at what you're reporting? If it's an unnamed source, how about you not do that live on ESPN First Take or in your podcast? So I agree 100% with Jaylen Brown. He didn't deserve that in my opinion, especially somebody that's not problematic. If it was a problematic athlete, if there was one of these guys that's getting in trouble or one of these guys that's causing issues in the locker room, I could understand why Stephen A. will want to use his platform, if it's an unnamed source, to come out and say like, yo, hey, we've been hearing that this guy is a problem in the locker room and this is why certain things are not happening. But the fact Stephen A. Smith said out his own mouth that like, yo, I like Jaylen Brown, you know where we stand. You good on the court, you good off the court. There's no issues with you there. So that's why Jaylen Brown is asking Stephen A., well, then why are you reporting this about me? So yeah, Stephen A. Smith, it looked like he didn't understand what Jaylen Brown was asking him. Yeah, guys, that's it for today's video. I would really love to hear your thoughts about today's video. Get in the comment section down below. Don't forget to hit that like button on your way out. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. Catch you guys on the next one, and we out, guys. Peace.